afternoon and welcome to Resolutions for Recovery. This show is dedicated to the education and empowerment for all those struggling with substance use disorder, especially their families. Today's show is going to be a little bit different because today, in light of the epidemic that is currently, just all across the United States, we have an issue going on right here in Suffolk County in the small town of Blue Point. And Seafield Treatment Facility, which has been around for 35 years, guys?
32.
32 years, and has done great work all across Nassau and Suffolk County, and has sober homes. In light of unregulated sober homes, they run the best, willing to take on a facility right in Blue Point and take care of our women and children. So I can't stand idly by and let the ignorance of a few stand in the way of what could be a perfect fit for a community and for society. So let's stop with property values. Let's just talk about human life and the value there of it. It's not the people that are inside seeking treatment that cause havoc in a community. It is the untreated patient that is creating havoc. So today I'm so honored to be joined by Mark Epley and John Haley. And thanks for sharing, I know, the passion that you have behind helping people. So we need just to move forward with helping people. So I was sharing with you, John, a few years ago, really stepping into advocacy and speaking up about my own family's journey and having lost Thomas at the ripe old age of 21, and writing an op-ed piece about not having access to treatment and being the shame and stigma that comes with this disease, from having the all-American boy who, when stricken with the disease, was now the scourge of a neighborhood, which he wasn't. And the comments that came after this piece that I wrote for Newsday, and I mentally had to prepare myself to read the comments because I needed to know the ignorance that really was the climate on Long Island. And to read people, so many comments say, "I'm glad he's dead." I'm glad he's dead. How do you even say that in your outside voice? I don't know. I really, to this day, I can't really begin to fathom the level of ignorance, and that's what it is. So we need to open up the hearts and the minds of Brookhaven Township and let them know what it is that you do accomplish and what it is that you don't want to see happen to their community.
Yeah, well, I mean, and Mark and I both want to just say thanks, and
Absolutely.
We appreciate the opportunity to come on here and appreciate what you do as far as educating the general public about what it is that's going on, what this epidemic is doing to our communities, and also that there is hope, that there is treatment. The whole name of your foundation, Thomas's Hope, lets us tell people out there that although their family members are sick and suffering from this disease, there is hope and that treatment works. And that's what I've dedicated my entire professional life to. I'm doing this for 30 years now. Mark and I have been doing this together for the last 25 years. And in that 30 years that I've been doing this, Seafield has gained a reputation as being a leader in this community of Long Island in general as caring. And what I always say is you can't fake caring.
No, you can't. You can't fake genuine
and
caring.
What you said about the family is important because what we have been saying before the epidemic that is currently raging on Long Island even came to be, we would always say there's no family that hasn't been touched by this disease. Now it's more true than it ever was before, and your family was touched, my family was touched, Mark's family was touched. You know, I lost my father to this disease when he was 54 years old, and he drank himself to death. I just turned 54 yesterday, so this is the entire life that my father had.
Wow.
My sister is 28 years in recovery this year.
Oh, God bless.
And that's the hope part of it. Treatment does work. People can get well, and it is a disease. And the stigma that's out there about these bad people, these evil people, these criminals, these junkies, that's what keeps the treatment community and the recovery community from being able to go out and provide and expand these needed services in the face of this epidemic to all of these local communities that think they're insulated in some way from what's going on when they're not. There's no community on Long Island that's insulated. Long Island is a hotbed for this epidemic. Suffolk County in particular has the highest death rate in the state of New York, and Brookhaven Town, where Blue Point is, has the highest death rate in Suffolk County. This is a community in need. This is a community that's losing a generation of young people.
Yes.
This weekend, a young woman in Blue Point who graduated from the high school there in 2012 passed away from an overdose. Right down the road from the center that we're talking about, another individual lost their son to this, who has a foundation like you've done to try and reach out and educate people about what's going on. So without the education, without the acceptance from the community that these people are here, they live in our community and they need our help. These are our brothers, our sisters, our aunts, our uncles, and our relatives. These are the kids that my kids play on sports team with, parents, brothers, and sisters, that need this help. Until that barrier is broken down and that acceptance is out there, which can only be done through education, the work that you're doing here, the outreach that we try to do, the Long Island Council on Alcoholism is trying to do.
Yes.
Ed Romaine, the town supervisor, is trying to do. He held a press conference on steps at Town Hall this past summer where he invited me to come be a speaker and say, we need to do something or we're going to lose a generation. And he's correct about that. And now this is his town, and these are his people, and we're offering to come in there and provide these services. And now this is their first chance to say, okay, we're going to do what we said we're going to do. And their welcome has not been what we had hoped and thought that it might be. So that's the battle that we're currently fighting. We need to get the word out there and educate people and let them know that this facility is something that will save lives. Somebody wrote to me, well, why does we wanted to put 76 beds for females only. Okay. So all kinds of therapeutic studies that discuss why women being separated from men in early recovery is appropriate.
It's always appropriate because, you know, the epidemic unfortunately has hit our young people. They are young people, period. So what did you want to be when, you know, if there's girls around, when you're a 20-year-old boy, you want to talk to girls.
Shocking, but it does happen.
I know.
But it does happen.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, at St. Joseph's Treatment Facility, I know they have to lock the bathrooms at night because the cameras aren't in the bathrooms, because that's where young people will go to hook up. Yes, things will happen. That's biological, part of nature. That's not going to change.
Yeah, but even from a treatment standpoint, you know, from a fraternization standpoint is really what you're talking about. But from pure treatment, most of the women that are brave enough to seek treatment, and I tell you, they are heroes. They're the bravest people you ever meet that step across the threshold of a treatment facility, are victims. They're victims of sexual abuse, domestic violence, mental violence and abuse, and they're victims. And so sometimes the therapeutic atmosphere is not ideal when you mix male and female. And so what we've done in our program in West Hampton Beach is we've done everything we can to separate the two. We have separate male groups and female groups. A lot of the workshops are separate. And we understand that, it's a greater opportunity to heal. And so we've looked for many, many years, a couple of decades actually, for a space. And over the last 4 years, we've been very active, and we've looked at over 50 locations and stuff to find a place where we can actually do a place that would be separate for women and allow them a great opportunity to heal. And when we found the St. Ursula's Center, when we both stepped on the grounds, the very first thing that went through our head was, this is a very spiritual place that great healing will occur. It's a very quiet place. It's a place where the privacy of our patients and their families would be protected. It's a place that the privacy of the neighborhood would be protected, and because of the way we run our operations and stuff. And we felt like this is an ideal location for the healing, the journey to begin. And
I agree wholeheartedly.
We've looked at
yeah.
industrial areas, we've looked at commercial areas, we've looked in a wide variety of places, and there was no place that touched our heart. Because it's not a career, it's our passion, and it's what we do, and it's because of our, we're both come from families with addictions issues and stuff, and it's more than just a career. And we knew when we stepped on the grounds, we just looked at each other and said, this is a special place.
It's also a special place for the nuns that have been there for many years.
Yeah.
That was their mission statement, correct?
Well, the historic mission of this particular order, the St. Ursuline Sisters, was for women and children's advocacy. So to have a women's program go into what was historically their mission and their retreat was something that the sisters were very pleased about, yeah.
So the sisters are happy.
Yes.
It's just the community that is not.
Well,
it's not really happening in my community, which would be the first fallacy that they have to open their hearts and minds to.
Here's what I would say about that. That since January 1st of 2015, we've had over 1,000 people that have entered Seafield system from that councilmatic district, District 5 in Brookhaven Town, that have entered treatment. And so it is... the population, say the Blue Point Bayport Library, the population they serve in that district is 13,000 people. And that kind of allows you to understand the percentage. New York State, the Attorney General, if you look at his report that came out a couple of years ago, it's 11% of the population that has an addiction issue.
And do you find that women typically will seek treatment later on in their disease as opposed?
No.
No?
No,
okay.
I think that, I think it's just a common, I mean, obviously child care is always an issue. The stigmatism around addiction is always a major issue. And, we do see young women that come into treatment. We see older women that come into treatment. We see people that teachers and lawyers and police officers and moms and sisters and grandmothers. We see them all that come into treatment, and as John said, it's everybody's.
It's
family,
everybody's problem.
Everybody's.
And historically, that had some validity. There were women getting further in their addiction, but now what's going on with the opioid addiction, that has been such a fast-moving addiction, and with the inclusion of fentanyl into the opioids, that is a very deadly situation.
Yeah.
And so what might have been a drinking problem that progressed over 15 or 20 years is now an opioid problem that progresses over 6 months.
Yeah.
And literally, the first time you take it, you can die.
Yeah.
The first time. So it's not what the historical addiction that women who typically were drinking a bottle of wine at night or doing some pills at home out of the medicine cabinet. The face of that addiction, which historically was what was going on, now it's you go out, you try heroin that's laced with fentanyl, and you die.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what we're fighting now.
The progression of a disease, so I'll use my own son, from the age of 15 to 18, And that was probably a longer time period for him in today's world, because
Right,
we're going back a
right.
few years. You know, cigarette, alcohol, and marijuana progress very quickly to injecting heroin. You know, today, listening to kids from outreach who are in the adolescent treatment facility, in 6 months, they're going from, at 13 years old,
Right.
doing their first substance to shooting heroin. Oh
Well,
my
when
God.
law enforcement is doing their interdiction and trying to shut it down from their policing standpoint, they're having to wear gloves when they're handling marijuana now, because the marijuana has been laced with fentanyl.
Everything is laced.
And just the contact with the fentanyl, with the skin, is enough to affect the police officers. So that's how potent this is. It's multiples times more potent than heroin is.
Yeah.
And it's everywhere. It's laced
everywhere.
in
Cocaine.
the marijuana, it's laced into the cocaine, and it's laced into the heroin.
Yeah.
So our young population that used to be, oh, I'm just having a joint, I'm just, you
Yeah.
know, this, pot has been proven too. They're legalizing it all over the country. This isn't even a problem. And soon New York State's going to be on board, and I'm going to be able to grow it in my backyard. What you're buying from the dealers on Long Island is being tainted with fentanyl.
Right.
Yes.
And it can kill you.
And who says it's homegrown anyway?
Yeah.
It's all synthetically engineered now, hydroponically grown. So it's a much different product than anybody our age wants to sit back and say, oh, I didn't have a problem with that. There's a problem with all of these things. There's a problem with the onset of a boy having his first drink is the age of 11. We have a problem in our society. So how do we fix a problem? First off, a fatal progressive disease needs a lot of intervention all along the way.
Right.
You need to be throwing roadblocks. And then if and when you finally find your way to treatment, there needs to be good, solid treatment that you can go to.
Needs to
Which-
be access to treatment too.
Yeah.
And that's one of the major issues, is that the number of beds on Long Island to service the number of people that are actually seeking treatment is lower. And it's every single state committee meeting that they have, all the outreach that they've done, every hearing that they've held, one of the consistent themes is the lack of treatment beds in New York State. And we use it from our own system. You know, we probably do about 800 assessments on a monthly basis, people seeking treatment. You know, many of those people, probably 50% of them, actually meet criteria for inpatient care.
Throughout our outpatient
Throughout
system.
our
We're not coming
outpatient,
to
yeah,
the
we
inpatient
have
for-
6 outpatients.
Yeah.
So we don't do an assessment for at our West Hampton Beach facility. So what we do is, in our outpatients are placed around Long Island, so they're easily accessible to people. So an individual can go there, sit down with a counselor, do a level of care determiner, and determine what the appropriate level of care is for them. So then we can make that treatment recommendation. So, you know, 50% of them actually meet criteria for an inpatient level of care. And so we'd go to make those referrals. And some, we have about 180 people that come into our facility in West Hampton Beach. We have a 100-bed facility with an average length of stay of about 20 days. And but there's another couple of hundred people out there that we are referring to other facilities, or don't actually make it into an inpatient treatment program. And that's the thing that I think John and I struggle with, and our entire organization, is that we are assessing someone, and we know what their need is. We don't have a bed for them to go into, and we let them go back with their family. And sometimes they go back onto the street, and it's just, every time that happens, I know that that's one of the struggles that we have, because
Someone's going to die.
Potentially could die.
Yeah.
And so that's why we've been very aggressive in looking at 50+ sites in the last 4 years to try to meet this need. That's why we feel like we found something that's almost identical to Seafield and West Hampton Beach.
So let's talk about West Hampton Beach, because we're talking about West Hampton Beach.
Okay.
With a much higher property value than Blue Point. And that's not I'm not making a disparaging remark. I'm making a factual remark. What is the average value of a home in West Hampton Beach?
Well, just our neighbors, because that's really the crux of the issue is when we were going into West Hampton, just like as we're discussing the opportunity in Blue Point, the concern is the neighbors that had joined the property who are concerned.
And you've been there for 32 years.
Well, 33 years.
33 years.
Yeah.
West Hampton Beach, and you are right on Montauk Highway. You're actually south of Montauk.
No, we're on Main Street.
You're on Main, yeah.
And Seafield Lane, in a residentially zoned piece of property, in a residential neighborhood, as a non-conforming use. So that being said, the property values, I mean, the houses that abut our property are anywhere from $1.5 million to $20 million. Yeah. So, you know, in terms of the property values, some of those houses have turned over in the 33 years we've been there, and nobody had a problem selling their house for multi-million dollars. And our neighbors have written us letters that we can share with the local community. They've been my neighbor for 33 years. They've been a good neighbor, and we've had no issues. You know, so that type of relationship from a treatment center in a residential community, having your neighbors write you letters of support to inform the community we might move into, just how good a neighbor we've had, I think speaks volumes to what it is that we do.
Without a doubt, because we're talking about, let's go, you know, Hamptons is, you know,
you know, what we really focus in on how do we minimize the impact quality of life of the people that surround us.
Of course.
So because we know that it's a resort area, that there's a year-round residence there, that people are, we're a mile from the elementary school, we're a half a mile from the library, there's a church that's you know, right around the corner from us. You know, we're right on Main Street in the village of West Hampton Beach. So, you know, our traffic flow, for the most part, is Monday through Friday during the work hours, 8 to 4:30.
How many people do you employ at Seafield and West Hampton Beach?
West Hampton Beach is around 150 people, but also that we have 100 beds there. We have all of our administrative offices and stuff, so we're not looking to duplicate that. In the Blue Point, we would probably employ about 80 full and part-time people that would work for us there. Around 40 would be the most that would be there at one point in time. And
good paying
jobs. Good paying jobs, all
workers,
professionals.
Nurses,
so we have,
nurse practitioners,
so
doctors.
I'm just going to make a list for, you know, so a plus would be that there's going to be 80 people spending money in their local economy because they'll inevitably do some shopping there.
Right.
They'll eat lunch. Yeah. You know, food shopping, plus whatever else is available to them there.
Yeah, and also this property is all, you know, we're private and we're not a not-for-profit, so the Blue Point facility is actually off the tax rolls. So we would actually go back onto the tax rolls, and so we would have support the tax base there in Blue Point, and no kids would end up in the school system. We'd actually, you know.
So there is there's no impact on the school system. No. You're going to go from, you know, the convent obviously doesn't pay taxes, but you are going to add, so property tax values, property taxes won't go up because you're going to alleviate some of the burden there for them.
Well, the bottom line is that some of the burden would be, but we're a good neighbor. We're a quiet neighbor. And our goal ultimately is to protect the privacy of the people that seek us for treatment and their family. So, and with that being said, that means that our goal is to protect the privacy of our neighbors. So, you know, we want separation. We want people will go by West Hampton Beach in Seafield and they have no idea what it is.
No clue.
They drive by it, they don't even realize
I've been out because I come out and visit you and speak to patients there. I've driven by the facility more than one time because
you don't realize it.
You don't realize that it comes up.
We do have a shot of Seafield Center from the air.
Gio, can you bring that up?
Well, that's the front of Seafield
That's
Center.
the
We just
front.
took last week.
There we go.
And that's Seafield Center on Main Street. Main Street is on the right-hand side, and Seafield Lane is on your left-hand side.
And Beach Lane is on the western side.
Yeah. And so that's actually, if you'll go back to the other one, please. And so that's 5 acres of land that we have. And we employ around 150 people that are there. And that's a 100-bed facility. And so, you know, we have good buffering between us and the neighbors. You can see we're in the heart of a residential area.
You are.
We're zoned residential. And we are close to the bay.
Yes.
We're close to the village. The village is actually, the heart of the village business district is up on your right-hand side, up in the corner there. And, you know, and the thing is that we take a lot of pride in the way that our property looks and it's maintained, because, you know, how does one actually begin the recovering process if you step into a facility that doesn't show any
Feels
type
institutional.
of... Yeah, it's institutionalized, it's no respect. So, you know, we take a lot of pride in the way we maintain it. We want people to walk in and feel like, hey, this is home. This is a spiritual place. This is a place where I feel comfortable, that I can seek recovery, that I...
It's quiet, it's conducive to healing.
Yes, it is. No, and then, so one of the things that had intrigued us about the St. Ursula Center is, if you pull the Google map up on that,
We're gonna
there it is.
Okay.
It's on Middle Road and Blue Point Avenue, right on the corner, but it's also in a residential
heart of
area.
the residential area.
And it's not right now buffered well between the neighbors and the facility, but that's one of the things that we would do. And on top of it, that's 8.3 acres. It's over 3 acres more than what we have, and it's 76 beds, and it's a smaller facility. So we would be able to lay this property out. You would not even know that we're there.
Yeah.
And on top of it, you know, our clients, they don't leave the grounds. Everything is done on ground. So they don't
They're not
leave.
walking.
They're not
They don't
walking
need to
the
go
streets
shopping.
like people think that
I'm
they're going to
gonna
walk. So you're going to cut me
Stop
off.
this.
Okay?
I am.
That's okay.
We'll be right back
Okay.
after this
All
message.
right, thanks.
We'll go into some of the comments.
My age is 18 years old and my name is Evan.
My name is Sean and I'm 19 years old.
My name is Justin, I'm 16.
My name is Angelica. I'm 18 years old.
Marijuana, and I was 13 years old.
Marijuana, and my age was 13.
The first drug I ever tried was marijuana, and I was 12 years old.
It was marijuana and I was 11 years old.
Yes, and that escalated to promethazine, lean.
I began to take pills like Xanax, Percocets.
I began using other substances such as pills and alcohol.
I then went on to cocaine and pills and quickly progressed to heroin. I was 13 years old when I first started using heroin. I had like aspirations of going to like an Ivy League school, and that quickly, within like a year or two, changed. I stopped going to my classes, I stopped going to school altogether eventually. All my friends were kind of just dropping me.
I started getting in trouble in school, eventually kicked out. I got in trouble with the law a lot.
I wasn't really hanging out with a lot of sober people, just people that use. I overdosed at 15. I've been at Outreach for 5 months. Outreach honestly really helps you. It shows that you're honestly worth something. And it's possible to become sober if you put in progress. But it's not just gonna be handed to you, you really have to want to change. Inpatient, you can't just leave. You stay here and you have to deal with it. That's what I feel like a lot of kids need.
In a long-term facility, the counselors get to know the resident better, and they get to actually work with them more than in a short-term 28-day facility. And it really gives kids a chance to work on themselves rather than being rushed through a program just to be thrown back into life, going back into the same old bad habits that they were doing before.
Coming in here, I couldn't believe how long I would have to be here, but after a couple months, like, you know, talking to counselors, I kind of came to the realization that, like, I need a lot of time and work to repair everything I've done.
The things that we get taught here, you know, it really does help you in life, and it gives you a different perspective. It's very important for a kid to have a family involvement in treatment so they don't think they're alone in this. We communicate on a better basis than how we used to. We understand each other more, and that was from the help of outreach.
They come every Wednesday night for support group. They come to a group every other week.
They come to peer support group to discuss their problems also. My relationship honestly has got a lot better, because I remember my mom used to never want to say anything to me because she would be scared of my reaction. I'm starting to realize in here, like, I really have to take advantage of the fact that I have her still.
When I was about 14 is when my parents realized that I had several different problems, such as behavioral issues, and the behavioral issues kind of stemmed from my drug use. I began caring less about myself and others. Outreach has really made me realize how important family is. If I was out of state in a program where my parents were not involved, I would have never been able to strengthen my relationship with them. My father told me that I've inspired him to make changes in his life, and that meant a lot to me. I've never heard my dad be inspired by something before, and I was just proud that it was me.
So I don't even want to waste time. We're jumping in for a treatment facility in Blue Point, Bayport area. And, you know, Mark, read some of the comments that you did get from the opposition to the home going there.
Well, we've received a few emails in reference to this. And so
I can only imagine.
But, you know, and education is key.
Yes.
To it, because I think most of the emails that we receive from people are people that need an education.
On substance use disorder.
On substance use disorder and also treatment. And one of the things that we've done, and every single one of them we responded, we've offered people an opportunity to come out and view our facility in West Hampton Beach, and I would offer it to anybody. You would just call Seafield and ask for John or myself, and we'll meet you anytime, any day.
How many people have responded to that offer?
Actually, 0. And
okay.
And so, I mean, but we've gotten these emails, and it's like these sufferers had a choice. They chose the road of alcohol, drug abuse. They weren't born saying, I'm going to grow up to be an abuser. They made the choice somewhere along the line. And then it's recovering addicts strolling through town where children go to school. I like that. Girls will always be reminded of the worst that is out there. And it was, a lot of these people don't want and can't reform, and homes and cars are broken into by them looking for money for drugs and alcohol. Oh, the last thing we want to see, needles laying around and women who will do anything for drugs harming our children. Okay. They're visiting families taking over the peaceful, quiet neighborhood. Freedom from fear is what we want. Classic. And then this is one that is a shot at the sisters for even negotiating to sell it. So as far as the sisters who turned their righteous back on the community that welcomed and embraced them for many years, to what God do they answer to? Thank you, sisters, for nothing other than betrayal. You know, that's what people put in writing. You said earlier, one of the things that you said earlier, you said people are saying that he deserved to die in their outer voice.
Yeah. And
I thought the fact that someone's inner voice would say that is unbelievable. So these are people that, for the most part, putting things down in writing and sending to us because they lack awareness of what we do.
Yeah.
And
they lack basic awareness of what substance use disorder is. So I will say that my son made one bad choice. Made one bad choice on whatever his first substance was. And I always like to think of it as that switch went on.
you know, it's and maybe some of these people are impacted by that directly in their homes, and maybe they grew up that way, and maybe there's fear of you know, of the unknown. And I understand. I'm a father. I've got 4 kids. I've got 4 grandchildren, and John's a father, and you know, we understand that. But making it a place that protects confidentiality, privacy, safe for everybody involved is really what we're all about. And here's an opportunity for a site that is just, it's an incredible place. It's a beautiful neighborhood. And the people that we actually have talked to, even though they might be, are really nice people. They're hardworking people. They're good family people. They're involved in their communities, and they've got great youth sports programs. They've got a fantastic library, a lot of activities that are going on. You know, incredible boating community down there. So there's a lot of fantastic things. We know, and we're in the same setup. You know, West Hampton Beach High School just won the Long Island Championship in football. Yes. You know, that high school is less than a mile away from our facility.
And all 3 of my nephews went there.
It's one of the highest ranked schools in the United States. It's a great community, and people bike there, they live there. There's a good boating community. There's fantastic restaurants. It's a great shopping. People come from all over the world to see the place.
Yeah.
And
we're an asset to the local school. They are inviting us in to come in and do speaking engagements, education for both parents and for students. Yeah. We bring our youth speakers in there that are same age as these high school kids to let them know what their path has been and what options are out there. So,
I mean, we want you know, as much as some people are afraid that we're going to destroy the community, actually we've been the exact opposite in West Hampton Beach. We're the second largest employer in the area. We're very quiet. You know, we participate with every opportunity. We get an opportunity to do that. We are, as John said, we provide speakers to the school system, and you know, we're back on we're on the tax rolls. We contribute. We do a lot of nice things in the community, and it's zero impact. Zero impact in an area.
And the proof of that, it's easy for us to sit here and say, we don't impact the local neighborhood, we're wonderful. The proof of that is that when we went to put a 60-bed rehab on a residential piece of property in this community, the community was up in arms. They came out exactly the way Blue Point came out. Well, maybe not quite as negative as Blue Point has come out, but certainly packed the town hall meeting in opposition to those people coming into our neighborhoods and junkies walking our streets. So they didn't understand who we were and what we did. After we finally got approved for our 60 beds, they said, well, one of the covenants was you have to have a community board that will interact with you on a monthly basis to let you know what the impact of the community has been, how you can fix the problems that are going to be coming out of this, and be a good community member going forward, which we, of course, agreed to. That was disbanded in 2 years. There was never a problem. They never wanted to meet. There's no community board anymore. We don't do it. That being said, after we were there operating with our 60 beds for 12 years or so, we went back to the community because of the need for beds on Long Island, and we said, listen, we know we're a non-conforming use. We need 20 more beds. We want to go up to 80 beds. By 30%, we're going to increase our beds. They said, okay, here's another 20 beds. You haven't been a problem. You interact with the community in a wonderful way. You're a welcome addition to the community as a resource, and here's 20 more beds. And then we went back and we said, we need another 10 beds to go to 90 beds from starting at 60. And they said, okay, you can have 90 beds. They're not doing that if we've been any problem whatsoever. Then they passed a law in the village saying no expansions of a non-conforming use, which is what we are in our residential property. We went back after they passed the law and said, we need 10 more beds to go to 100 beds because of this epidemic. And they said, you got it. Here's another 10 beds, and now we're a 100-bed facility. If we were a problem at all whatsoever to the property values, to the children riding their bikes past us, to the neighbors, to anything, they would have said, listen, we gave you the 60 beds and you're there, that's it. Not here's 20, here's 10, here's 10. Have a 100-bed facility in our little community of West Hampton Beach. That's the kind of neighbor that we've been.
It's a small town also.
Very small.
But you know, what the opportunity that they're missing to see that could be 76 women that will ultimately be returned to their families to be productive members of society, taking care of their children, their mothers, their aunts, their whatever it is.
But it's not. That's not the opportunity. Because I got that in an email from one of the women who lives near the facility saying, why are the needs of these 76 women more important than the needs of an entire community? To which I said, Seafield in West Hampton Beach is 100 beds, but we don't serve 100 people. Since I've been at Seafield, we've served tens of thousands of people. So we're not talking about helping 76 women. We're talking about helping tens of thousands of women.
Without a doubt.
On Long Island and across this region.
And unfortunately, women, you know, single moms, it's easy to fall prey into different circumstances and suffer. You know, when you are struggling to make ends meet, to make all of the demands, that you may seek some relief using substances.
Yeah.
That's just the way the world is today. So how can we do better? Because as a society, we need to do better. All these women deserve to die that are being beaten at home, you know, and it is true. Sexual abuse, domestic abuse, you know, they have suffered a trauma prior to substance use disorder. Most people who turn to a substance have trauma in their lifetime.
Even if it's a physical trauma, because lots of these kids today, it's a sporting accident where they get Vicodin from the doctor,
or wisdom tooth removal.
A wisdom tooth removed. Instead of getting 3 Vicodin to get you through the next day and a half while that subsides with the swelling and the pain, 30 pills.
Right.
30 pills taken 3 times a day or twice a day, 10 days out. If you take opioids for 10 days, you're addicted.
Dependent.
And when you stop taking them, you're going to seek something to deal with the withdrawal that your body's going to go through. And that's the education that's not out there for the physicians and for the family members who are being prescribed these drugs about what the likely outcome of you taking these drugs over that period of time is going to be.
You know, the tens of thousands of people that are struggling with substance use disorder that you have helped on the road to recovery, there's that whole family aspect that goes along with it. That people, you know, it is a family disease. Yeah. It affects every person there. Yeah.
Well, so one addict negatively impacts the lives of 28 people.
Easily.
And so if you really look and you look at the number of people that we've treated since 1985, and you look at we've treated over 50,000 people. So you multiply that by 30.
Right.
You know, it's 1.5 million people.
Yeah.
That's everybody in Suffolk County.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just on the inpatient side. On the outpatient side, we've treated over 100,000 people in our outpatient. You multiply that by 30. You know, so it's everybody on Long Island has been negatively impacted by that.
How would you buffer the property to the surrounding community? Are you know, plantings, different things to,
the exact way that we do now. We have fencing, and we have plantings, and we have a big hedge, and it's separate. And when you drive by, you can't see onto the property. And then we also have a fencing area that encloses.
I'm going to interrupt because you know, and that's not so that your patients can't see out. That's so that the people outside can't see the patients for confidentiality. You're not looking to jail them there, right?
Oh, it's a voluntary facility.
It's a voluntary facility.
But the federal law requires us to protect the confidentiality of anybody seeking treatment at our facility.
Absolutely.
So the fact that, you know, somebody that might be a professional sports person or might be on television and be a celebrity and the word is out, oh, they're going to Seafield, you know, when the paparazzi wants to come and film, or the neighbors want to take a shot to put on Facebook, you know, none of that can happen. So
Who
we
was
protect that.
the female reporter from Channel 7 that was, she was an alcoholic? I can't think of her name. Pretty lady, slim, she does...
She just did the documentary for Oasis, which
Yes.
Was just screened by Rob
Reversing
Kent.
the Stigma.
It
Reversing the
was a
Stigma.
fantastic documentary.
Maybe
and
that's
we're trying to
something
get
that
our
we
hands
could
on
do
it
for the
soon
community.
for our clients.
Yeah, but maybe that's something we could show in Blue Point right now, reversing the stigma.
No, you know what we want in Blue Point is that we just want an opportunity. That's all we're asking. We're asking for an opportunity to sit down with the community and explain what we do, to try to give people freedom from fear, as they put on here. And you know,
They have more fear, though, coming from the untreated patient in their own community. And that's the part that I don't think that they get.
Well, I think
yeah.
a lot of the issue has been that there wasn't a clear message initially about what was going in there. So a lot of rumors started spreading around about what it was going to be, who was going to be there, and how it was going to be operated. That particular community in that area have a lot of sober houses. In Kate Browning's district near there, there's been a lot of issues with sober houses, and it's something that we've discussed in the past, and certainly on Long Island. There's been a negative stigmatism around sober housing because there's been a lot of bad operators. There's been a lot of people who don't do the right thing with the sober houses, that just overpack them, overcrowd them, don't have any kind of supervision for them, allow people to come and go as they will, and there's active use in a lot of sober houses. So the negative stigmatism regarding the sober housing and the fact that they're unregulated has created a lot of anxiety in this particular area about that sort of thing happening. So I think initially a lot of the rumor mill was that this was going to be a sober house, which is actually a legal option for this particular property as a residential facility, as a residentially zoned property. It can be a sober home, but that's not a regulated
And you
thing.
wouldn't need to go through the community
We wouldn't need to do anything.
Right.
We could tomorrow, we could
could
bring in people and put them in a sober house there legally. The legal precedents are numerous and set and established by the Supreme Court. That all being said, that's not our desire for this piece of property. We want regulation. We want staffing patterns requirements. We want federal confidentiality
You
requirements.
want the Office of Alcohol and Substance Abuse in New York State to come in and audit you?
Which happens to us every year. You know, all of that being said, that's what this particular piece of property in a residential neighborhood lends itself to being, not what somebody else might come in and do in terms of a sober house, which is a legal option at that particular facility. So, you know, there's a lot of questions out there about what can they do. Oh, you know, they're not going to get zoning. We're not going to allow this. We're not going to allow that. What's allowed without any zoning changes is not what they want. What they really would need in terms of the community
which
use
is interesting.
is
So they better be careful
change.
what they ask for.
Yeah, you know.
Unfortunately, and that just goes back to that ignorance, the ignorance of the disease.
Well, you know, we've been in the business for a long time. You know, we've been doing this, and like you said, this is not just a career or a business; it's a passion for us. And you know, I'm a Navy guy. You know, and we have all the policy and procedures in place, all the safety precautions in there.
You were the mayor of Southampton,
I was the mayor of the village of Southampton, and I was the police commissioner also.
Oh, there you
go.
And the library
and I was the president of the library. I built it. You know, one of the things they wanted to do on the spot was it was a library, and you know, I built the library, so I know the cost to doing that. I know the tax impact on the neighborhood. I know that in this Blue Point, Bayport library district, I mean, their tax rate just for the library is $14.55 per thousand of assessed value. Compare that to the Rogers Memorial Library, where in Southampton, where I was the president, where the tax rate is 16 cents per thousand of assessed value.
$14 versus 16 cents.
So, and
that's
just
before they try to put the library into the St. Ursuline Center, where they have to acquire the land and then renovate the building in order to provide the ability to have stacks of books. You have to reinforce it with steel and that. So the expense of acquiring it and refitting it to be a library, that number is going to go, you know, and what are the taxpayers going to say then? Oh, we don't want this, but when you go to put the library in there, there's no way we're raising our tax rates where they're already the second highest on all of Long Island for the library contribution. It's already second highest on Long Island. They're going to raise that to put a library in there?
So it's just, you know, we're trying, we know how to do it. We know how to be a good operator. We know how to be a good neighbor. We know how to be a good community member. We know how to help people. And this is such a spiritual place that it's a great opportunity for healing.
Gio, can you play the News 12 little piece?
We begin with the fight to stop a drug and alcohol rehab center from being built in Blue Point.
Residents I spoke to say the large facility is just not feasible for their small town.
We're in the process of cleaning out.
Sister Joanne Callahan shows me around the St. Ursuline Center in Blue Point. It's been their convent, a place they've called home for decades. But now they can't afford the $900,000 a year to keep the convent running. So they've had to make a difficult decision to sell it.
If we continued as we were, we would be bankrupt. There's no choice.
So the nuns reached an agreement and signed a contract with the Seafield Center, a private group that wants to turn this convent into a 76-bed alcohol and drug abuse rehab center for women. The Ursuline sisters say since 1935, this has been a place for hope, healing, and transformation. So when the Seafield Center approached them, they knew this was their answer to prayer.
It would be a bright spot in what has been a sad process.
But not everyone feels the same way about it.
We're not against drug rehabilitation centers, we're against the location.
This group of neighbors here in Blue Point say a drug rehab center is not the right fit for their small community, surrounded by homes, schools, and small children.
I feel for these people, but I feel like there are other places that they could go that would not be a negative impact to the people around them.
Everybody here is happy with what we have. To change it's going to be really dramatic.
But there are other residents like Dorothy Johnson, whose son died from a drug overdose. She sees the need for more drug rehab centers with the growing opioid epidemic on our island.
It gives the youth a chance to help themselves because they want help. There's just no place to go.
Seafield Center owners told me by phone today that they've been providing treatment in residential neighborhood of West Hampton Beach for 32 years now without a negative impact on their neighbors.
And on December 7th, the Seafield Center will be holding a community hearing at the St. Ursula Center so that neighbors can get more information about the alcohol and drug rehab center.
Before we have that.
So December 7th, we'll just dispel that right now. You're postponing that.
We're going to postpone that because we're reaching out to some of the community leaders in order to get a group of individuals, you know, in a leadership capacity from that community to come out to Seafield and see what happens there. Because, you know, when you see that clip and you hear people say it's going to have a huge impact on the area, it's not appropriate for our small community. Well, we have had no impact. So if I was there and I didn't know what was coming, I would have these same concerns. It's easier for me because I'm doing this for 30 years and I know what the impact is, but they don't. So we need to get a group of people, and we've invited everybody that's written us an email. Please come out and see it, and I'll give you a tour of the facility to see what's going on. Nobody's come. So we need to reach out to the community leadership, have them come see what the reality of it is as opposed to what the fear of it is. And see that it is not this big, huge facility, drug rehab, and it's going to hurt.
Are you going to add any buildings? Is the landscape of the existing buildings going to change there?
It stays the same. The footprint's
stays the same.
The one thing that we will do on the property is a couple things we're going to do. We're going to clean up the parking lots. We are going to improve the waste treatment system. Right now, it's all septic. It's the close proximity to the bay. I know that nitrogen leaching from cesspools is having a very negative impact on the groundwater flow. And so what
So
we
you would
do
connect
is,
to sewers?
well, they don't have sewers in the area.
Okay.
So what we'd have to do is do some type of waste management system on site.
We'd want to do that
That would
right on
all
site,
be all be underground. You would have no visible impact at all. We're not increasing the footprint of the facility. We'd have to do sprinklers throughout the facility because there's no sprinkler system in there, even though the building burnt down in 1980. And
That was, it was odd. It burned down in 1980, and they got the permits and rebuilt the entire facility as
Without
it
a
stands now,
sprinkler system.
and didn't put in a sprinkler system where they're housing none. So it was a little curious, but we would have to do that.
All right.
But we improved the kitchen, and you know, and then significantly improved buffering and the visual impact and stuff. So, which would be in different types of fencing, hedging.
So for me, it sounds it's visually going to be improved.
It'll be improved.
The environment is going to be improved.
Yeah.
Yeah, our grounds are immaculate, which is
They
why
are-
we want to
they
bring.
are- they are immaculate.
You've been to our
I've
facility.
been to the
Once
facility many
people
a time.
see what the neighbor is going to be, and it's going to be somebody who maintains their property in a way that would be anything anybody nearby would be proud of, then that also alleviates a lot of that concern. So that's why we need to get them to come see. This is what it is. It's not something that you've made up in your mind and are afraid of. The reality of it is very different. It's a community that has welcomed us now, expanded us, and we're an asset and a resource in our community, which is what we would be to Blue Point.
Yeah. I think the litmus test for me is that when I take my child to a place, when I take my child to West Hampton Beach and put him in treatment there, and I
took my child to West Hampton Beach and put him there, and I was very comfortable in doing that.
And that's really where I look at the St. Ursula's Center and say, would I take my wife or my daughter there, and would I leave them for treatment? And I would put them there before I would want to take them to a commercial or an industrial area
so
and stuff.
from a family's point of view, too, that I think that people need to hear is, without the beds being available on Long Island, first off, I would always want, God forbid, my daughter, my granddaughter, whatever, if they needed treatment, I would want them to feel safe and secure.
Right.
And maybe, you know, too many women are nervous about having men around, and you can't talk about the trauma that's occurred to you in that kind of atmosphere. That being said, the families that drop their loved ones off need to also participate in a family program,
right?
So that when they do complete their treatment, that the affected person can come back to a healthy atmosphere at home.
Yeah, I mean, typically the wife, you know, when she's giving the husband the ultimatum, you're getting help or you're out of here, and he goes away to treatment, and our average length of stay is 19 days. He goes away and gets 19 days of treatment and comes back, and she's thinking, oh, you know, thank God he's got help, he stopped drinking, and now he's going to help with the baths at the end of the day, he's going to help with the homework, he's going to participate in this, and he's not going to be at the bar every night. Well, guess what? He's going to come out of rehab, he's going to get into a recovery program, he's going to get a home group, hopefully, a sponsor, he's going to go to 90 meetings in 90 days, and the wife needs to know your expectations shouldn't be this. If you want long-term recovery, he needs to participate in this program.
And she needs to participate.
And he's going to be out every night. And that's for him. For her, there's a whole nother recovery process and a journey that she has to take.
And for the other children, for the children.
For everybody. Right. The entire family is affected and needs help.
Yes. And we can't create these atmospheres by keeping our head in the sand.
And also, if you're sending your loved one out of state, you're less likely to actually participate in the family.
You're not going to participate in a family program. I encourage, we'll send this out to Facebook pages in Blue Point, so anyone that's in Blue Point, feel free to message my Facebook page. Let's dispel whatever myths that you have, whatever fears that you have, and if there is a legitimate item that can be changed, let's change it now before they come in there. There's going to be something in your community So we might as well all work together and make it the best thing for everyone. Have a great week.